The season opening event in Qatar is just around the corner, and for round 1 in 2025, 36 of some of the most competitive cars will take to the track for this 10-hour endurance race, and in this video, I will list each and every one of them. For this entry list breakdown, I'll begin by talking about the hypercar class, and for this race, we'll be seeing all 18 full-time entries compete. First on the list for Qatar is the two factory 963s, which are the number 5 and number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport entries. For this event, the number 5 Porsche will be piloted by Julian Andlauer, Michael Christensen, and Mathieu Jaminet, while the number 6 car will be driven by Kevin Estra, Lawrence Vantor, and defending pole sitter Matt Campbell. Next is the number 7 and number 8 Toyota Gazoo Racing entries, which will return for the second annual race year. The driver lineups for the cars remain unchanged from the previous year's race, as the number 7 Toyota will be driven by Kamui Kobayashi, Mike Conway, and Nick DeVries, where the number 8 car will be driven by Brendan Hartley, Ryo Hirakawa, and Sebastian Buemi. Then we have Cadillac, as the American manufacturer will be represented on the grid by the number 12 and number 38 V-Series R entries from the British squad Hertz Team Jota. The number 12 Cadillac will be driven by Alex Lynn, Will Stevens, and Norman Nato, while the mighty 38 has Sebastian Bourdais, Earl Bamber, and 2009 Formula One World Champion Jenson Button driving the car. For BMW M Team WRT, they once again return with two M Hybrid V8s, which are the number 15 and number 20 cars, which sport different liveries. The number 15 BMW will be driven by Dries Vanthoor, former F1 driver Kevin Magnussen, and Raffaele Marciello. Meanwhile, the number 20 car has an unchanged lineup, as the drivers will be René Rast, Robin Freintz, and Sheldon van der Linde. Next up is Alpine, who are on the grid at Qatar with the number 35 and number 36 A424 hypercars. For the event, the number 35 car will be driven by Charles Malesi, Ferdinand Habsburg, and Paul Loucheton, while the number 36 Alpine will have Frederick Makovicky, Jules Gounon, and F1 legend Michael Schumacher's son, Mick Schumacher, in the car. Moving on, and another prestigious brand on the grid is Ferrari, who returns to Qatar with their 3499P entries. The Ferrari AF Corsa team are back with the factory number 50 and number 51 cars with an unchanged driver lineup, with Antonio Foco, Miguel Molina, and Nicholas Nielsen in the number 50 car, while Alessandro Pierguidi, Antonio Giovinazzi, and James Collado are in the number 51 car. Meanwhile, the customer-entered yellow number 83 AF Corsa entry returns with Robert Kubica and Yi Yafi, joined by newcomer Phil Hansen from Hertz Team Jota. Then, for Qatar, Peugeot will enter both the number 93 and number 94 hypercars, and this will in fact be the first Qatar event for the new version of the 9X8 hypercar. The number 93 Peugeot will be piloted by former F1 drivers Jean-Luc Verne and Paul di Resta, and they'll be joined once again by Mikkel Jensen, while the number 94 car will see Loic Duval, Malte Jakobsen, and Stoffel van Dorn drive the car. Next of the hypercar entries is the number 99 Proton Competition Porsche, as the team returns for their third year in the Premier class. For the Qatar 1812km this year, the 963 will be driven by Neil Gianni, Nico Pino, and Nico Veroni. Finally, there's the brand new Aston Martin Valkyries, as the Heart of Racing team will debut both the 007 and 009 cars here at Losail. The 007 Aston Martin will be driven by Harry Tinknell, Tom Gamble, and Ross Gunn, while the 009 Le Mans hypercar from the British Mark will be piloted by Alex Riberas, Marco Sorensen, and Roman DeAngelis. Moving on to the LMGT3 field, and for this year's race, the class will feature all 18 full-time entries. Making its debut in Qatar is the number 10 Aston Martin Vantage GT3 Evo from the French squad Racing Spirit of Le Mans. The team's car will be piloted by Derek de Boer, Valentinus Claw, and finally Eduardo Barrichello. Next is the two Ferrari 296 GT3 entries, as Vista AF Corsa are back for the event in Qatar with the number 21 and number 54 cars. The number 21 Ferrari will be driven by Alessio Rivera, Francois Ario, and Simon Mann, while the number 54 car has a lineup which includes Davide Ragon, Francesco Castellecci, and Thomas Flohr. Alongside their participation in the hypercar class, the Heart of Racing team will also be back in LMGT3 for this event, with the number 27 Aston Martin Vantage, which will see Ian James, Mattia Drudi, and Zachary Robichon pilot this GT3 entry. Next up is the two WRT entered BMWs, as the number 31 and number 46 cars are added to the entry list once more. Piloting the 31 car will be Augusto Farfus, Timur Bogoslavsky, and finally Yasser Shaheen, while the number 46 car has Ahmed Al-Harti, recent Bathurst 12-hour winner Kelvin van der Linde, and finally the famous returning Italian racer Valentino Rossi. Last year's LMGT3 pole sitters TF Sport will also be back in Qatar, representing Chevrolet, and they will bring the number 33 and number 81 Corvettes. The lineup for both cars is also amazing, with the number 33 Corvette planned to be driven by returning driver Ben Keating alongside experienced GT racer Daniel Huncadea and recent ELMS champion Johnny Edgar. Meanwhile, the lineup of the number 81 car includes Charlie Eastwood, Rui Andrada, and finally LMGT3 pole sitter last year Tom van Rompuy. Next is McLaren, with United Autosports bringing the freshly painted number 59 and number 95 entries back onto the grid. With an updated driver lineup to both cars, the number 59 McLaren sees returning drivers Gregoire Saucy and James Cottingham, joined by newcomer Sebastian Boe, while the number 95 entry will be driven by Darren Leon, Marino Sato, and Sean Golel. Moving on, and with Mercedes and their car, the AMG GT3, making their debut at Qatar, Iron Lynx is set to bring both the number 60 and number 61 cars onto the grid. The number 60 Mercedes will be driven by Italian racers Matteo Cairoli, Claudio Schiavoni, and Matteo Cressoni, while the number 61 car has Christian Reed, Lynn Hodenius, and former WRT driver Maxime Martin piloting the car. For Proton competition, alongside their hypercar duties, they are also back with Ford Performance in LMGT3, to bring both the number 77 and number 88 Mustang GT3s onto the grid this year. When it comes to the drivers, the number 77 Ford will be piloted by Ben Barker, Ben Tuck, and Bernardo Sosa, while the number 88 car has drivers Gianmarco Lavorato, Stefano Garuso, and finally recent Rolex 24 Daytona winner Dennis Olsen. Next up is Lexus, who are back on the grid with the Akotis ASP Run number 78 and number 87 RCF GT3 entries, and in fact, these cars showed decent pace during the Qatar Prologue earlier on. This year, the number 78 Lexus will be piloted by 2023 IMSA champion Ben Barnico, and he'll be joined by Arnold Robin and Finn Gersitz. Meanwhile, the number 87 car will be driven by Clem Schmid, Raz van Umberescu, and 2021 Le Mans overall winner Jose Maria Lopez. Finally, in LMGT3, there is Porsche, who returns to Qatar with a 911 GT3R, but with some changes compared to the year prior. As I explained in my grid changes video, which I'll actually link at the end of this video if you haven't seen it yet, with Manthey Racing still involved, one of the entries will see the return of the number 85 Iron Dames Porsche, and then there is the number 92 First Prom car. This year, the famous pink Porsche will be driven by Michelle Gadding, Rahal Frey, and bronze-rated racer Celia Martin, while the number 92 First Prom Porsche will have racers Ryan Hardwick, Richard Leitz, and Ricardo Pera. So that completes this breakdown of the 2025 Qatar 1812km entry list. Out of all the 36 cars that are set to compete, which one will you be rooting for? Well, as always, let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like endurance racing, definitely subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I'm releasing videos on a weekly basis regarding the WEC, IMSA, Intercontinental GT, and much more. To watch more content now, check out these suggested videos I've put on screen. For now though, that's all from me. Thanks for watching.